Yes.
Hello and welcome to Dancers Support Mission by Sabine for Shine Your Light. We have a new episode today of Dancer to Dancer Words of Wisdom. And I created this platform to meet the person behind the dancer and share with you all not only the highlights of someone's career, but also the challenges behind the scenes. Truly, my wish is to bring healing into the dance world, dancing to heal, healing to dance. One artist at a time and one personal story at a time. I do believe that storytelling gives us an opportunity to learn from another person's experience, and it can shape, strengthen, or challenge our opinions and values. Hopefully, this will allow you to embark or reflect on your own personal healing journey, inspired by others' experiences. And of course, if you find those interviews valuable and interesting, please share them with your friends. So today I am delighted to welcome Sandra Holtzappel. Did I do well with your name?
Very good.
Okay. So, Sandra, I'm really delighted to have you here because I think we have a lot of concerns in common and a view on life and on dance that is quite similar. So I'm very excited to get to know you better and hear about you. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with me for this interview today.
Well, thank you for asking me, because for me, it's an honor. I followed your platform for a while and I think you're doing a beautiful job. So I'm happy to give my little drop of hope.
Hope, yeah, and wisdom. So okay, so let's jump right in and tell us a little bit of how you started dancing, why you started dancing, and the main question for me is, when did you decide that you wanted to be a dancer, and what made you decide that?
Right. Well, I was 6.5 when my best friend at the time, we were best friends and we're still very good friends. At the age of 2, we got together in the kindergarten. And she brought me actually to ballet class because she was trying to find a new hobby, and she took me with her. And we went to gymnastics and ballet, and I liked everything. But when I went into my first ballet class, I was home. That's what it felt like. And the ballet teacher, who later became also a very special friend of mine, she was Zinaida, a Russian ex-dancer, and she fell in love with me. So we kind of had that connection immediately. She immediately saw something in me, which she then at age 9.5, she brought to my parents, and she told me that there was possibilities in Holland. I'm Dutch, born in Indonesia, but from Dutch parents, and lived in Holland many, many years. And I was in Leiden at the time, and she said that there were several academies, conservatories, where they would train young dancers to become professional dancers. And she asked my parents if they would be okay making me do or allowing me to do the audition. And as usual, my parents never obliged me anything. They asked me, and I said immediately, yes, I want to try. And both me and my friend, Adina, at the time, we went to do the audition. I absolutely loved it. I loved the ambient. I was super at home. I felt in that moment that this was my place, and I got accepted. Unfortunately, my friend not, but she had another journey to go, which is doing very, very well as well. But that's how I entered at 9.5 the Royal Conservatory in The Hague, which was then under the artistic direction of Marian Sarstädt. I did that for 8 years.
Could you still live at home while being in the conservatory, or were you like?
I was lucky to be able to live at home.
Okay.
Yeah, because we were about half hour by train, even though, of course, for a 9-year-old to go alone by train is a big deal. My mother, she would do the trial train trip and the tram and the everything with me. And I remember the first day I would actually officially go by myself. She went to the conductor of the train and she explained the situation. And I was sitting there. And then when I arrived, the conductor in the whole train said, "And for the lovely little girl, Sandra, this is your stop." And I will never forget that because I felt really taken care of. And I've been doing that for 8 years with many friends that later, we were every day there, and it becomes a family situation. So yeah, I was able to stay at home. I would leave at, early in the morning, and I would arrive, at 8:30 in the evening, eat, homework, sleep. And that was my life for 8 years. And I think there, lots of my journeys started, the good and the bad, let's say.
So let's come back to this after, but
I don't know if you want.
Afterward, I want to come back to this after. I would like to know, the whole trajectory for us to
More.
see a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So when I was supposed to go in Holland, you have the opportunity from when they were very long time ago, they already gave opportunity to young dancers to do it as a university study, which is fabulous. I think Holland was one of the first countries that allowed young dancers to have a university degree after as a diploma. So I did my 8 years, and then I was supposed to go into the Bachelor of the Arts, which at the time was called HBO. And I was not in a good place. My teacher at the time, Jan-Willem de Roo, he recognized that, and he said to me, I think you should do this somewhere else. There's opportunity to do this for a year or two in another country. Just a whole new environment, new teachers. And I think he spoke, I don't know exactly what happened, but I think he spoke with the directress, Marian Sarstädt. And in Holland, there is this beautiful organization. It was at the time the Alexandra Radius Foundation that would give scholarships to young students. And thanks to, I think, Marian Sarstädt and the conservatory, they allowed me to receive a full 100% scholarship to study for 2 years in Hungary, in Budapest, in the academy there. I had to come back after 2 years. So I got my diploma there, but I also had to still do my exam, my final exam in the conservatory, which I did, and I received my diploma from both academies, let's say. With my own difficulties, it was not an easy period for me, but I managed to get through. And then I decided, even though I used to be this really very classical, natural classical ballet dancer, physically, my movement, everybody always said, you should go to whatever, a classical ballet company, Dutch National Ballet. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to go in a big ballet company. I was afraid that I would get swallowed up by the hierarchy of it all, which I had already gotten to know in the conservatory. And I wanted to do my own thing. So, and that's very typically of me. I wanted to find my own journey. And in Holland, I was lucky. There is a very, very big world of freelance dance where many, many beautiful productions are being created with new choreographers, young choreographers, older choreographers. And I used to take class after my conservatory at the Hungarian Stichting, which at that time was in Amsterdam, and I think it still is. It's now under a different name. It's called Chassé. And I would take my classes there. I would, you become your own person, your own visit card, where you would take your classes. The choreographers would come there, and they would kind of pick you from the classes, and they would say, I'd like to work with you. Would you like to do this audition? And that just started to become something very normal for me. And I became a freelance dancer. But I did that really by choice. I had done also auditions for companies with good results, but never the result because I was still emotionally unsure. I was not aware how good I was. I did not fully believe in myself. I would always come far. I would always get really beautiful compliments from directors. But they always would say, you're beautiful, but I still see you insecure. You need more time to develop your security so that we can really, throw you in the corps de ballet, but you also would potentially become a soloist because that's what you could be. That's the talent that you have. And I felt there that slowly being in the Hungarian Stichting, starting to work with choreographers that would come to me and say, I'd like to work with you. It started to give me freedom. It started to give me also the opportunity to say, oh, I like that choreographer. I'd love to work for him or her. And I slowly started to take life in my own hands, where I could choose which person I wanted to work with. And I really enjoyed also the fact of doing smaller productions where I would be involved in lighting, costume, story, which later then being now directors of a ballet school of my own with my husband, Giuseppe, it made totally sense because I started to already prepare myself for what was coming later, starting to understand a lot about selling tickets and, you know, going to a theater and promoting your show. And slowly, I started to get into that. And in order to do the productions that I love, which not always paid a lot of money, I started to inscribe myself in more commercial agencies. And I did some really fun things there. I was a hand model where I made good money. I did some, you know, some modeling. I did things for television. And then I had my schedule, my agenda would be full for a year. And I would know, okay, this is where I'm going to do commercial projects to make money. But then now the next 3 months, I can do what I love, no matter if it pays me well or not. I think now the payments are much better than at the time. But so I was really loving my life. And then I met Giuseppe. I met Giuseppe, my husband, long time ago when I was 16. We went to a gala in not Florence, in oh Madonna, in Valencia, in Spain, and we danced together, Paquita. But that was at age 16, mine, and 20, Giuseppe. We became friends, we met each other. But then at the age of 30, and he was 34, we met again at the Hungarian Stichting. We were both at the end of a relationship, and we want to change. We needed change. We were kind of empty, but we started dancing again, and we just looked at each other and fell in love and never left each other again. And he was asked to go to Canada, where we met Sabine again, the Royal Winnipeg Ballet Company. And we lived there for 6 years. He danced in the company, and I was a teacher, became a teacher in the conservatory. And that's where I made my switch of freelance dancer, being completely in charge of my own life, my productions, but also realizing in Winnipeg there was not that life. So I had to make a choice. And I just knew at the time I was very convinced I was going to become a teacher at the Royal Winnipeg Ballet School, the professional division, amateur division. Everybody told me, nah, that's not going to happen. They want big names. I was like, no, that's my place. I'm going to go there. And so I had meetings with them, and I think it was especially thanks to Mrs. Weber at the time, who really saw something in me, that she convinced the directress. And I had 5 or 6 years, I don't remember at this moment, where I worked with the professional division of the Royal Winnipeg Ballet School, the highest 2 levels of many students who now dance abroad professionally. But I worked also with the younger kids, and I worked with the amateur kids because I really loved that as well. And then they gave me adults, which I fell in love with also. And so in the end, I had my full days of teaching, which I absolutely adored. And that's where I started my real teaching life. I had done some teaching before in Holland, but this was the real serious deal. And then we left Canada and we came to Italy. We wanted to be closer to family, to our parents. Unfortunately, the father of Giuseppe had already passed away. Being in Canada, you know, it's far away and very cold, -56. We've lived it, you know it. And we came to Italy, the Italian, you know, the good life, and wanted to collaborate. We collaborated with several schools, wanted to share our knowledge, wanted to open the doors for young professionals, and that was tough. That became a lot tougher than we imagined. It was a big culture shock. Lots of talent in Italy, lots of beautiful realities, but it was tough to, you know, for people to really accept that we were there to share and not to take. that was difficult. And yeah, and after a couple of years, we just were like, you know what, this is not working. Maybe we should start something for ourselves, which we did. We started 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now, Hope for Dance where I am today. And we've been doing that, you know, with a lot of love and a lot of passion and hard work.
We're going to keep that anyway for another thing, because, you know, I have a plan.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to do a trilogy. So I'll do you, I'll do Giuseppe, and then I want to talk about Hope, but in another interview, because I think that's really...
yeah, for sure. So we are at Hope today, and that's going to be the end of it then, of the trilogy.
And I would like to come back. I mean, what would you say was your biggest challenge as a student and as a dancer? You know, it could be the same challenge or it could be a different challenge, you know.
Yeah. Well, I had a very strong technical training. I think the conservatory gave me a very pure and clean training, which I was very lucky to have also later as a professional dancer and also as a teacher to this day. I think what was a big problem looking back is that it's a problem that was happening a lot in the past, but I think also still today, unfortunately, it happens. It's that old hierarchy of almost fear for your teachers, no communication with your teachers, no psychological help in a very, very demanding training. You were very much left on your own. There was no communication with the parents, or very, very little. So it was really just you in your own island, your parents, who oftentimes wouldn't understand really what you were going through, and then the teachers. And the teachers you would worship, or you would be afraid of them. It depends on the teacher. I have very good experiences with many of those teachers. Other teachers I was more afraid of. But in general, I had a good relationship with all of them. But I think looking back at it now, going through such a demanding training where you are every day dancing, injuries, tired, changes, also going through your puberty, hormonal changes, your body changes as a girl. All those things were not talked about. How to eat as an athlete, for example, when I was 14, I would come back from the summer, and I was always a girl who loved to eat. I loved to eat everything. I never had issues with my physique. But then I had apparently gained a couple of kilos, and I had started to develop breasts. And I was looked at by teachers like it was a problem. Even the things that are not said, but just the eye look, the eye focus, or, oh, you gained a couple of kilos, be careful, because if you get too big, then you will never be a dancer. And so that's where fear started to come in. And there was no guidance in that. We didn't have nutrition meetings, not to be skinny, but to be healthy. We didn't have meetings with the psychologist who would help us to get through this very demanding training where you have to go on stage and you have to perform, and there is competition and you have to be perfect in everything. There was no psychological training and guidance with that. There was no communication with the teachers. There was a big respect for the teachers, but if there was an issue and a problem, I wouldn't go to my teachers and talk to them. It just was not done. And the teachers would not come to you. And I think their problems in me as a person and as a young dancer started to develop. I started to develop eating disorders. It was a mix between bulimia and anorexia, because I was not guided. I thought I was in difficulty. I thought I had problems when I was in puberty, but when I didn't. There was never a problem. I've never had, looking also back at photos, there was never an issue. But the issue was in my head, and the issue was a bit created by the environment around me, and then not being able to be guided, to be helped, and somebody just say to you, know what, don't worry. Those 2-3 kilos, you're gonna lose them because you're now in puberty. Your hormones are changing. You're developing breasts. beautiful. You're a beautiful young girl. Be proud. You know, had somebody told me that, looking back, things would have probably gone in a different way. On the other hand, I'm also the teacher now that I am because of those experiences. I can guide my students so much better. And I was able to get completely out of that mechanism through help. At one point, I had to really get and ask for help because I couldn't deal with it myself. I went to ask for psychological help. I was guided. And with years and time and, you know, figuring out things for myself, I've been able to completely overcome these issues. And I'm also very much able to now work with our students with a very serene mind. Just, you know, you're beautiful, no matter how you look. Dance has to be for everybody. And if I notice something that reminds me of a possible issue, real issue, I'm the first person to talk with the students, and we have a very, very good relationship. And oftentimes, when it happened, even if it happened rarely, they would immediately open up. And so I could immediately talk to the parents and say, let's get a psychologist there, let's get a nutritionist there, and let's get this out of their system as fast as possible, which has happened also in the past. So my past was a pro. In the end, it was a plus.
But you know, when you talk about a
Yeah.
nutritionist, I find that very difficult because a normal nutritionist is not a good nutritionist for a dancer. You know
No,
what I mean?
no,
And
it has to be a nutritionist specialized.
exactly, because otherwise it's like they can't relate to one another either. You know what I mean? Because a
No,
nutritionist cannot relate to what we do, and we cannot relate to that person who is not at all in tune
right,
with the work we're doing. So
right. And
that's
so
also very
a
important,
nutritionist,
right? To the right people to help you.
absolutely. Yeah, because a normal nutritionist, when a dancer would come there, the first thing they said to me my whole life, you're underweight.
Yeah, yeah.
You're underweight. You have to lose weight. And it's like, no, I'm naturally, you know, a very slim person, but as a dancer, you know, there's certain statistic and aesthetic demands which you can reach in a healthy way. But, you know, I think also when you eat well and you eat healthy, your body naturally will slim up. And if you're happy, also your body will react. So yes, you need a nutritionist that understands the amount of hours you're dancing and what it takes for a dancer to be strong, but also lean at the same time.
So
Correct.
you said that, you know, you at one point this place was not the right place for you, so you were sent to Hungary. How was it for you to were sent so that far, you know, when you actually didn't feel that great, you know, because I can imagine that this was kind of challenging, right?
Yeah, I was in the middle of my eating disorders. It was a very beautiful experience. It taught me to be on my own. It taught me to be away from home. It taught me how easily I'm able to adapt to any country or culture. Ballet world is universal. So whether you speak the language or not, you will find your people. Ballet world is a certain type of people, I think, that choose this job. So you find your friends. I was in the end 2.5 years there, with beautiful experience, but my eating disorder stopped me from really getting and making the most out of the experience. I was still going in periods very good, and then I would drop back in my old pattern of doubting myself, which then potentially would go into eating disorder. And so it's been tough. Yeah, it's been a tough
So
period, even though it's been a very beautiful period.
for you, because you know, I guess it's different for everybody, but there must be a common thread. It's like the eating disorder would come from what belief then, you know?
Ah, that's a good point. Not being good enough. The pressure of always thinking that what you do is not enough. So I, for example, when I came in Hungary in the academy, they have two divisions they had at the time. The one was the Hungarian professional division and one was the international professional division. And because of my talent and the technique that I had, they immediately allowed me into the Hungarian professional division, which was not for everybody. And so, and that happened in my life oftentimes, that I was immediately seen for the talent that I was. And I would go and flow, go with the flow. But then I would be there and I'd be like, what am I doing here? I mean, look at these fantastic dancers. I'm not like them. I shouldn't be here. And so those thoughts, those destructive thoughts would pop up every so often and would make me start to self-destruct. That's what you're doing when you are, whether it's bulimia or anorexia, you become self-destructive. And the power that you have inside of you, because I strongly believe not only that when you choose to become a dancer, you are a very sensitive person because you're artistic. But in the same time, you have to be extremely strong to deal with all the pressure of the job. And that together is not an easy combination. So if you are on top of that, also somebody who tends to self-destruct with your thoughts, I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough, my breasts are too big, my bum is too big, God knows, all the thoughts that come, you start to try to take control by controlling your weight. But because you're doing it in the wrong way, you start to go to extremes, which can be overeating and then throwing up, or not eating at all and getting to a place where you become too weak. Either way, it's a very complicated disease. It's really a disease. It's something that you will not so easily be able to resolve by yourself, I think, without any real professional help. But it's oftentimes also a family disease. There are dynamics in the family that as a young child potentially have brought you to be like that, to want to please, to think that you're not good enough. I later understood very clearly in my own family what were the issues, and I dealt with those issues. And I have a very, very beautiful relationship with my family. Talking about things, which was not done at the time, but I had to talk to them. So I've learned so much about that. But so I think and oftentimes the people that have eating disorders are actually people with an extreme internal power, which they just don't know how to direct. And they direct it internally in a wrong way instead of using it for themselves to gain, to become stronger. But when you start to understand those mechanisms, especially coming out of those issues, I think the people who have gone through these problems and resolved them, I think they're doing beautiful work everywhere in the world because they know and they understand that their strength is something that they chose to use wrongly. But now you can also choose to use it right and in a good way, to help people and to help yourself. At least that's my experience, and that's what I'm trying to do in the dance world as a teacher and director.
Beautifully said, because I think also those thoughts and those patterns are mostly any dancer would have them, not feeling good enough to that. And then it's really like one way of using your energy the wrong way, as you say. I mean, the wrong way. Maybe you need that experience to develop things, as you said. I mean, it gave you,
it can become serious.
Yeah, it can become very serious. I mean, it's your life can be in jeopardy. But what I'm saying is that it's interesting because the baseline is what all of us, not being good enough, it's a signature, because you're never good enough. You're always in front of that mirror, and you're always told what you do wrong, because this is how you progress as well. I mean, the dynamic is so, and there's a signature. So of course some people will take it more towards one lane, which is this one, and it's scary. I think it's very scary for parents who are dealing, who are looking at it, and it's scary also for the people around, because you don't know how to react, to this. Because sometimes it's not just saying, you have breasts and you look beautiful, and because even if you're saying to that person, for me you look beautiful, they might not believe you either, they might just think, well, you don't know what you're talking about as well.
It's too late. Yeah. Yeah. Right. If they already have that mechanism, it's difficult. But sometimes you can change that. When you're there fast enough, you can potentially change it. I think for parents also, it's very important when you bring your child to a conservatory all over the world, find out what is the policy? How do they work with children? How do they talk to the children about their weight? Do they talk to the children about their weight? How is it being dealt with if somebody has weight issues, which can be a minor problem or it can be a bigger problem? Are parents involved? Is there a psychologist? Is there a nutritionist? I think, especially in the big academies, this should be something like with top athletes who go to do, the Olympics. They have everything, the whole team around them to train them to become the best of themselves. Dancers should have the same,
Well,
because
but
in
that's
the end,
the
you're going
problem.
to be
We're
performing.
not considered as athletes. We are artists. And that's, I think, one of the problems.
In my mind, we're both. Yeah, I think the physical effort that we're doing is definitely the effort of a top athlete. The artistic part of it is extra. And it makes it more complicated. For us, more beautiful, but more complicated as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a subject we could, talk about for a long time, but I really appreciate your, that, I mean, this is something to work on, and something to look at very thoroughly. And I know that because I know people who are confronted to that are around those, young people. It's very difficult to deal with. So I feel for them because I'm not an
well, I think
I've been through that,
Right. I think what is most important is that teachers in general, they have an incredible responsibility, because with few words, you can make or break your student. Yeah. And I think when you're working with kids who are every day, in ballet clothes, everything is visible in front of a mirror, the vulnerability is more. It's extra. So I think it's very important for teachers who have had professional experience to work with their kids and guide them in that, how to use the mirror, how to look at the mirror, how to not make it an emotional judgment, but just look at, am I standing straight? Is my shoulder where it needs to be? And then to have that guidance of teachers to just say, you're on the right track, you're beautiful, believe in yourself. However, let's work on this. This can still be more. There is ways in saying to somebody, you can do better, instead of that's not good enough. Yeah. There was hardly ever in the conservatory time when somebody would say to me, you're beautiful. When I would start teaching at the Royal Winnipeg Ballet School, you had a similar experience. The first thing I would say to the children, oh my God, you're so gorgeous. And they would almost faint from, what do you mean? And I'm like, you guys are fantastic. Or if they would do something really well, that I'd be jumping in my chair and go like, yes, fantastic, good for you. There are so many ways of sharing your love for dance and your passion for dance. And I think it's important that us as teachers who have decided to pass this on, that we do not pass on any bitterness or issues from the past, because that's dangerous. If you have worked on your own issues and your own problems, and you love to dance, and you love to teach, and you have passion, that's what you can give to your students. But dance should also be for everybody. Not everybody can become a professional dancer. Dance should be for the 90-year-old who still wants to do a little bit of tango with her husband, or the character dance, or salsa. Ballet should be the same, taught in the right way. Dance should be something that, dance for me is a medicine. That's what it became. Later in life, I understood that dance for me is my medicine.
That's very beautiful. I love that message. Sandra, we have 2 minutes left, and I would like you to give me, if you had to give one advice to a young dancer shortly, what would that be? If dance makes you happy, do it. And you know what? The world is your theater. It can be your bedroom, it can be the street, it can be a studio. Dance, dance, dance. And if you want to dance and do something more serious,
find the right people, the right school to guide you. That's my advice.
I like that. Fantastic. Okay, Sandra, thank you so much for that beautiful time with you.
Thank you for this opportunity.
We have another one coming with Giuseppe and with both of you. So I'm very, very grateful for that moment. Thank you, my dear.
I'm grateful for you. Big hug. Talk to you soon.